So what if the one thing we've always been told to fight, our ego, isn't really the enemy? In this explainer, we're going to look at a pretty radical idea. What if the ego isn't something to conquer, but actually a sacred responsibility, a divine trust? We usually think of the ego as the villain of the story, right? It's the source of all our problems, that little voice inside our head we're supposed to shut down. The poet Rumi? Well, he nailed it when he said our worst enemy is hiding in yourself, and that enemy is your false ego. But what if that's not the whole picture? Let's just entertain a different idea for a second. What if the ego isn't some monster we have to slay, but more like a delicate veil? A veil that stands between us and what's really going on. Okay, so why a veil? Well, think about it. That constant chatter in our heads. I think this, I feel that, I did this amazing thing. It can actually block out a bigger truth. It's kind of like staring at a beautiful, intricate curtain and completely forgetting that there's a whole world on the other side of the window. And this is where things get really interesting, because the ego has this incredible two-sided nature. You've got the negative ego, that's the one we're all familiar with. It's the one that's always shouting, I did it, that was all me. And it kind of traps us in this little bubble of illusion. But then there's the positive ego, and this one acts more like a tool. It helps us see ourselves in relation to something bigger. So instead of just seeing, we can say, wow, my sight is a gift, and it helps me appreciate the one who is the ultimate seer. See? The ego becomes a key, not a cage. Okay, and this right here, this leads us to the absolute core idea of this whole explainer. What if we just stopped seeing the ego as something we own and started seeing it as a divine trust? There's actually a word for this, emanet, and it totally flips our relationship with ourselves on its head. The idea is that our ego, our talents, even our life itself, they're not our personal property to just do whatever we want with. No, they're a profound trust, a secret charge given to us that we have to look after with real care and integrity. And to give you a sense of just how heavy this responsibility is, a verse in the Quran says that this trust was offered to the heavens, the earth, and the mountains, and they all turned it down. They shied away from it. But humanity, we took it on. We accepted. So you see, the real challenge isn't about having a strong ego in the way we normally think about it, like being dominant or powerful. The real strength is in being trustworthy. It's about becoming a reliable keeper of this trust. The whole game changes from trying to own it to learning how to be worthy of it. All right, so how do we actually do that? How do we become trustworthy with this inner self? Well, the sources give us this really beautiful and practical metaphor. We have to learn to cultivate our inner garden. It's a lot like gardening, really, when you think about building your personality. First up, you got to clear the weeds, right? And those weeds are the illusion that you own everything. Then you plant the seeds, your God-given talents, your knowledge. You've got to water them with humility, always remembering that every single blessing is a gift. And what happens in a healthy garden? It bears fruit for others. You start contributing something good to the world around you. And this leads to a pretty wild paradox, but it's at the very heart of this whole idea. Real freedom, it doesn't come from owning and controlling more. It comes when you surrender the claim to ownership in the first place. Now, this shift from I own this to I am responsible for this, it's not just some abstract mental exercise. It's a real journey, one that completely changes how you think, how you talk, and honestly, how you see everything. Just think for a second about the words we use. They really do reflect what's going on inside. When everything is I, me, my, it kind of darkens the heart, It traps us in this tiny little box of the self. But when we start to shift our language, when we attribute things to a higher source using words like he or his, we're acknowledging where it all really comes from. And that opens up a window to something infinite. So you can actually see a clear path of development here. A lot of us start out in that isolated I stage, I, it's all about us. Then, hopefully, we grow and move into the we stage, community, working together, service. But the ultimate goal in this way of seeing things is to reach the he stage. That's a place of total, peaceful surrender, where your entire personality is built in harmony with the divine. So where does this all lead? What's the end goal of this incredible journey? Well, the idea is to polish the self until it becomes a perfectly clear mirror, a mirror that's capable of reflecting the divine. And it's such a beautiful way to see it, isn't it? That every single one of us is created like a mirror, with this incredible built-in potential to reflect the attributes of the Creator. Things like wisdom, compassion, justice. So when you think about it, all that spiritual work we do, it's really just us polishing our mirror. Every single time we let go of that need to say, I did this, we're wiping away another smudge of self-importance. And that just allows the divine light to shine through us that much more clearly. But there's one last, really crucial point of humility here. The reflection in the mirror might be beautiful, sure, but our focus should always, always be on the eternal source of that light, not on the mirror itself, which is just temporary. And so all of this ancient wisdom brings us to a really personal and timeless question. You see, it was never about destroying the ego. It was always about purifying it so it could fulfill its true purpose. The question for you, for me, for all of us, it isn't if we have a mirror. We all do. The real question is, what will your mirror reflect?